Welcome to ConnectATL. This is the second quarterly gathering. My name is Leslie Langley. I work in research and analytics here at ARC. Also, thank you for bearing with us on the construction site. That was a fun scene to come out to. So as you saw in the Eventbrite and all the promotional material, today's agenda will be a conversation on everything connected to everything. What is the Internet of Things? How does it connect to transportation solutions? And what's happening in our backyard? So we have two amazing speakers, Bryan Mulligan from Applied Information and Tom Sever from Gwinnett County. Both have, I think, some inspirational tales and some nuggets for you to think on. So just before we get started, the next quarterly meeting will most likely, this is, you can pencil it in, it should be confirmed soon, June 28th will be the third quarterly with 3 revolutions from UC Davis. They focus, as you can read there, shared autonomous electric, what it all means. It'll be more of a workshop system. And then for updates on anything we're doing in this space, please feel free to visit ConnectATL.org. It'll give you an exhaustive list of everything smart cities related at ARC. All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to Bryan.
Thanks, Leslie.
Tabula rasa.
So, thanks for turning out, everybody. Hopefully, I'm going to keep it quite light. It's fast-paced, and hopefully it's challenging. I'm going to challenge a whole bunch of assumptions that you have in the transportation space about what's happened in the past and what we see as happening in the future. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the Internet of Things but keeping it really, really practical. The business about planning for the planning of the plans, and we might all have a better future if we think about this and it might happen one day. That's all very well, and that's sort of vision stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about 4 things. I'm talking about how we connect everything to achieve 4 objectives, 4 outcomes. Save lives, improve traffic, drive commerce, and help the environment. That really encapsulates the 4 things that can make a difference today, and how do we do that using the Internet of Things and technology. Surface transportation, we think, is at a tipping point of rapid change. Now that's quite hard and difficult for the folks in the public sector, because I had some discussions with ARC, whose planners say, we work on a 25-year time horizon. How are we going to do this when everything is in an environment of such rapid change? And hopefully I'm going to both challenge and help answer some of those questions or concerns. I'm going to use these 3 examples. Marietta, Renew, and Atlanta, Gwinnett County are great examples of local authorities and local... You can hear me okay without the mic. I don't need to... I'm just kind of yelling, which I sort of do as a thing. Marietta, Renew, Atlanta, and Gwinnett County as examples. And then what I'm going to do is hand over to Tom to drill down into Gwinnett County is how they are using some of these technologies to advance their smart communities initiatives. So we're going to share... So we're just going to recap about how do transportation systems work at intersections. There's a history of this in the 100 years of essentially automobiles being on the road. And they started off being electromechanical. That's how it lasted about 70 years, where there was a dial inside which turned the lights, and that's where the concept of cycle times and so forth actually came from, this dial that went round and round inside traffic controllers. Electronic controllers came on the market, and those proved to be capable of more sophisticated actuated control. Then what we did is we connected them all together. And so that's when the advent of transportation systems came about, closed loop systems and things like that. And By star topology, I mean that there was a central system and it connected to all these field devices and so forth. And through copper wires and fiber optic and so forth, it came out of the industrial automation and the telecoms industry where there was a pole system. The details are unimportant, but the future looks completely different to this. And that's what our challenge. The future consists of everything connected to everything in this wireless cloud. And these things are a great example about how that works, where in the past 10 years we've gone from having nothing to having these highly sophisticated devices that connects you to this world that none of us know how it works. But that's an important part, that we don't need to know how it works, provided it delivers value and security and convenience and effectiveness and so forth. And the same applies in the transportation space. And we're going to touch on, well, what does that mean? How transportation systems owned? Well, over another 100-year history is that the concrete and asphalt has been an asset purchase by a government entity from the private sector, but done on a capital workspaces. That's how the Eisenhower interstate system was built, and that's how traffic systems have been bought and paid for by the government over this last years as we've got intelligent transportation systems going. The government, in its various forms, does maintenance in various ways, and the traffic systems are all operated by the government and by government employees or by consultants under contract and so forth. And this has been a fine way of running comparatively simple networks. But why is all of this going to change? And that's what we're at a tipping point. And the reason is because of these things. Forget how they work. That's not the point I'm trying to make. But we've gone from having nothing to 220 million connected devices, not funded by the government, this massive infrastructure, in 10 years. We've got now to connect ubiquitous connectivity, ubiquitous internet, in these 10 years. And in the transportation space, through a broad range of government entities that we deal with, everybody's struggling to keep their systems going. Everybody's wrestling with the same problems. And so what is inevitably going to emerge is different ways of doing things. And I'm going to talk about those a little bit and illustrate with examples and so forth. So I'm going to talk specifically about some Atlanta examples. Renew Atlanta, you guys are familiar with the Renew Atlanta bond program. We've done a number of projects there. Marietta has been, I'm going to touch on that, very progressive in terms of deploying technology out in the streets, and have actually just in this last several weeks completed the commissioning of a fully connected system. I was going to talk about smart community. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then Gwinnett County, and I'm going to hand over to Tom for the bulk of the insight as to how a county is dealing with smart communities and the deployment of technology. This is a great question that was asked by somebody at ARC here, is, yes, you can have, we've all been talking about this Internet of Things, but what is it going to do for John Q. Citizen today? Given that we're going to measure it by the 4 outcomes we desire to save lives, improve traffic, drive commerce, and help the environment. And so I'm going to touch on an example of each one of those in transportation that is being deployed today in this Atlanta area, so that you can actually see it working and play with it for yourself and experience the future today. The first example that I'm going to use is the business of getting paramedics to citizens in need and the consequence of that. So, and in the past this has been called as a silo preemption, a priority and so forth. And yes, that's, previously has been a siloed thing, but now it's part of a much broader initiative. So this is how you save lives. An example, not the only way, but this is how you save lives. And what you do is you give all your paramedics and your fire trucks green lights to pass through the traffic intersections, and at the same time, bring all other traffic safely to a halt. So what does the data say about all of this? Well, I'm struggling to track down the original research report, but there's a belief in this business that if you can get paramedics to citizens in need and to accident victims 30 seconds earlier, in the United States, we'll save 10,000 lives a year. It's a time-critical business, getting first responders to your citizens in need. And so, to bring it down to more things, I did the numbers for Gwinnett County based on the number of citizens as a percentage of the United States. And getting the paramedics to the Gwinnett citizens in need will save the lives of 25 citizens a year. Now that's not a massive number, but it's not nothing either. And it's also part of the process of saving lives, improving traffic, and so forth. So these are the numbers that are, in the public health policy business. Often you're not dealing with individuals, you're dealing with trends and numbers and statistics and so forth. And so there's some great examples of things that this technology can do straight away. For example, it came up with ARC that in the south of Atlanta, health outcomes are not as good as in the north of Atlanta. And the key thing that was identified that heart attack and stroke victims have poorer survivability in the south of Atlanta because of the access to medical help. So these are some practical things that you can do in 2018 to use technology to achieve the public policy objectives that everybody's looking for. So that's an example of saving lives. What about improving traffic? Well, there are a couple of examples about how one might do that. I was chatting with Leslie at lunch, and we've just dealt, and considering the pace of change in the last 5 years, we've seen Uber and Lyft emerge as new transportation modes that nobody thought of before, all enabled by these things. So Uber and Lyft come to be, and everybody said, well, maybe that's going to take cars off the road because people are going to ride share. Well, generally, the data doesn't support that. What the data supports is, in fact, the Uber and Lyft cars are in addition to the other cars, and the ridership they attract is taking it away from transit. So how do we in the transportation business respond? And the answer is we make the buses work better. That's one of the things that Tom's going to talk about, that making transit work better. There's either the business of repeatability of travel times or reducing travel times. But if we can give the buses green lights to make the bus time travel less, make the bus work better, and people say, yeah, but that might inconvenience Joe Public in his individual single-use car. And we say, absolutely, because inconvenience a single occupancy vehicle to get a 100 occupancy bus working better is in the common good. That's in the public policy area, and technology can make the buses work better. If the buses work better, then more people will ride the bus. If we can make more people ride the bus, then there's less traffic. So we can go from a lose-lose situation to a win-win situation. And so we're busy with Marta. We've got a number of initiatives that are underway, and with Renew Atlanta deploying Campbellton Road at the moment as their pilot to prove this out, that we can make the buses work better and drive ridership to the buses. What about commerce? Well, let's make freight work better. and one of the ideas that we're piloting at the moment, is the business of giving freight vehicles green lights in off-peak periods. The more broader version of this story is, let's toll green lights. And that will drive the behaviors that we want, with people will club together to drive in a car that we pay for the HOV lane. I mean, that's kind of a more radical version of the same idea, but it's well demonstrated in Atlanta that you can pay for convenience with the hot lanes, and if you want to ride the hot lane, it makes sense for you to divide the cost in two by having 2 or 3 of you share the cost. So all of these things drive the behavior that we all want. So the freight idea is through the green lights in off-peak periods, make the freight work better, also drive the behavior you want to incentivize fewer freight vehicles in peak periods, reduces the congestion in peak period, and we end up with less traffic. So all of these are available today with the technology as it exists. And there are a lot of companies who, we're not the only company working in the space. There are many companies who are pushing these and other ideas similar to this forward. For those of you who know applied information and some of the work we've done in Renew Atlanta and Marietta and with connected vehicles, there's a whole discussion about the future of surface transportation is electric, connected, and autonomous. We're working in all those areas. But in 2017, we came out with a smartphone app that is called Travel Safely. It's working in Renew Atlanta and working in the whole of Marietta. And it's quite interesting how you can deliver applications through this Internet of Things that have actually made quite a difference. And so, for example, the one that took us a little bit by surprise is what we call Get Ready for Green. So when you pull up to a red light, and we're all used to that, and people get distracted. Other people check their cell phones. I don't do that. And then when the light turns green, nobody knows. There's this pause and honking and so forth. So what we did is the app is over your car speakers, 3 seconds before the light changes to green, it says, "Get ready for green." It's been a hugely powerful application that everybody's loved. They said, "Wow, that's such an obvious thing for your car to do to tell you when the light's going to turn green." And so that's Get Ready for Green. And in fact, in Marietta, just the other day, we were in the process of commissioning it, and we realized that there's a new application, absolutely hadn't thought of, and that's to do with routing yourself through Marietta. A lot of the intersections have a left turn and a straight. So now we tell you, if you want to go somewhere off to the left, and you've got you know the road, so you've got a variety of things. And this is one of our folks reporting this. He said it makes all the difference. I know it's 80 seconds until the left turn light change, and 15 seconds until the through light changes. Well, I'm going to go straight. And eventually I come to an intersection where it's 10 seconds for the left turn to change and 50 seconds for the straight. Well, that's where I'd make my left. In other words, it contributes to route guidance, a completely unexpected benefit of connecting everything to everything. So this is all tangible stuff that's all happening today. They all run as part of a smart city supervisory system and so forth, and this is just a screenshot of the Renew Atlanta thing, showing where the emergency vehicles are, the fact that the health and status of the whole system is working well. I'm just going to touch on Renew Atlanta and Georgia Tech. They're focused on the connected and autonomous side of things. They've got some shuttles they're planning to run up and down North Avenue, up North Avenue, down Ponce de Leon, autonomously. We're going to, those are slow-speed shuttles. We're going to make them get green lights the whole time, so that even though your shuttle's running slowly, it never stops for traffic. Whereas everybody else driving their private vehicle has to get caught up in the traffic. And so that, again, can drive behavior that everybody wants, is leave your private vehicle behind, ride MARTA, and then take an autonomous shuttle for the last mile. It's running down, essentially, from the MARTA station down to Renew Atlanta. Down to Pond City Market, down this Renew Atlanta corridor. So you can drive the behaviors that you as policymakers want. It has both DSRC radios and cell communications. And then Professor Mike Hunter is from Georgia Tech. And all the data that's coming out of this Renew Atlanta corridor, we're piping through a data fire hose to Georgia Tech so they can do analysis and future work and things like that. So we collaborate very nicely with the research environments. This has got this grants environment and travel safety as well. I touch on Marietta. The focus, interestingly enough, at Marietta is on emergency vehicles. And Bill Bruton, I don't know, you know the city manager at Marietta, very, very nice guy, very thoughtful. And he said to us, the decision was this: as traffic is getting worse, we know that the response time to our citizens is getting worse. So our choice was to do one of two things. One is buy your technology and install it, or two is we can build more firehouses. So it was interesting. That was a great example how technology was competing against brick and mortar. And so he said, we can equip the whole city with technology for a fraction of the cost of building a firehouse, roughly the cost of one fire truck. So let's do that, because that's going to drive the behavior that we want of getting our paramedics to our citizens in need back to the old response times. And so that's how they got to the cost. So they funded that out of their own special purpose local tax, their SPLOST, and their penny tax, and which they could either have bought more firehouses or the technology, and they decided on technology. Again, it's a Glance Technology. They've got 250 devices in all connected to each other and to the system. And this travel safely. For those of you interested and have reason to go through the Marietta, try it for yourself and go to travelsafelyapp.com and register for the beta test. I know that Leslie's been driving up and down North Avenue and experiencing it for herself, and Winter and Bill and some other folks as well. And then you can experience what does this Internet of Things feel like when I use it in my own personal life. And that's a great thing, which in fact Faye DeMassimo, I'm going to steal an expression from her. I don't know how many of you know Faye. She just recently moved on from being the general manager of Renew Atlanta. She said a key thing that we have to do is socializing the technology. And this is all part of this program of getting everybody used to the idea that technology is going to become part of our life in transportation. And Travel Safely is a free app. You download it, you just use it. You don't like it, let us know. Just don't use it anymore. Nothing. It doesn't change anything. But it allows us to get folks used to the idea of the technology. Then thirdly and most importantly, Gwinnett County. And I'm going to hand over to Tom.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Sever. I'm with Gwinnett County DOT. May the 4th be with you. I'll go through a little bit of our background at Gwinnett County, talk about our previous school flasher control infrastructure, talk about our upgrade project, then I'll move on to our Peachtree Industrial Smart Corridor. Real quick, we currently have 720 traffic signals in Gwinnett County that we maintain. In Gwinnett County, we maintain every traffic signal, whether it be state route, city street, or county road. 550 of those are in communications with our traffic control center in Lawrenceville. 220 miles of fiber optic cable have been installed, supporting 260 cameras, and then we have over 200 flash and beacon locations. And the map here, the green is what's in the ground working today. The orange is actually projects that are about to start construction. They were awarded on Tuesday by the Board of Commissioners, and I'll thank ARC while I'm up here for the CMAQ funding they allocated for us. So, again, thank you. About the school system, Gwinnett County Public Schools is the largest school system in the state of Georgia, over 178,000 students and 139 individual school buildings and locations. In addition, there's the City of Beaufort Schools. They have 4 schools. They're building a new high school on Beaufort Highway, if any of y'all know that area. And then there's also a few private schools scattered around the county. That all results in 273 individual beacon locations. Some of our school zones do not require beacons. Their speed limit is 25 miles an hour on the road, so we don't have beacons for those. But the ones that do typically have 2 or 3 beacons for each location. Some have 4 or 5, depending on the road network. And then some of our beacons serve 2 schools. You'll have a high school and a middle school located right next to each other. This is our first generation units. These were hand programmed. These worked great in the 20th century. It's weird to say that. They were reliable, but they were time consuming. Somebody had to go out, punch in the information at each location. As Y2K came around, concerns resulted in the system needing to be upgraded. But it is so reliable, we still have one in use today, and that's to make sure our coffee's ready when we get there in the morning. Our second generation was installed in 2000. It utilized pager programmable time clocks. If you hear the word pager, you know what's coming. That resulted in one-way communication. We could tell it what to do, but we had no way to confirm it did it, or it received it, or that it was working when it was supposed to, unless we put a technician in a van and sent them out there to confirm it. So as pager technology became outdated in recent years, we were having more and more issues. So we identified the need to replace it, and the biggest benefit was it provided two-way communication. We could confirm it received data, we could confirm it was working when it was supposed to be working, and that has made a tremendous reduction in our service calls. Comparing August of 14 and 15 with August of 16, we saw a 90% reduction. As you can imagine, that's a lot less man hours of people driving and sitting in traffic trying to confirm things are working. Over the course of the whole year, it was 75%. And so that's approximately 200 man hours that were saved. So that's not kind of like the brick and mortar example, that's real money. And then for this current school year, we're seeing a similar rate as we saw last year. Like I said, two-way communications. This is the information you show up extremely well, sorry. But basically it tells you when you last talked to it, if it's on schedule, if it's on special operation. Each beacon gives us a GPS coordinate, so it populates the map automatically. And so we can proactively address. It'll tell us if one bulb's out, it'll tell us if there's battery issues for our solar power locations, and we can stay on top and keep the beacons working. Because as you realize, a beacon like this is enforceable. So a county and 7 city PDs like to have this thing working, have it on, so when they're writing tickets in school zones, it's for the right speed limit. I'll transition a little bit to our Peachtree Industrial Smart Corridor project. So first, why this corridor? Peachtree Industrial, the infrastructure is maintained by Gwinnett County. It has congested areas in the south, and Winter can speak up if she wants to. And it has very rural sections in the north end near Hall County. It also passes through 7 cities, and those are listed here. Going back to what Bryan was alluding to with public safety, there are 6 fire stations within a mile and a half of Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. So we'll figure out exactly how many of those will receive emergency vehicle preemption. And this corridor is also identified for transit system expansion in our transit development plan, which will be wrapped up and hopefully approved by the Board of Commissioners very soon. This is a map showing it. Again, it's about 20 miles. There are over 50 traffic signals. We already have existing fiber optic communications to the traffic signals and cameras that are on the corridor. And the daily traffic ranges from around 45,000 ADT on the south end, 30,000 in the middle in the Duluth-Swanee area, and then drops down to about 12,000 as you go into Hall County. We'll add connected vehicle technology. Yeah, there we go. I'm faster than it, apparently. Like I say, connected vehicle technology will be added, giving things like red light warning violations and other messages like Bryan was talking about. The signals will broadcast signal phase and timing information and safety messages, and we'll look into adding adaptive traffic signal control to, again, reduce congestion, improve flow. Like I talked about, we're looking at emergency vehicle information to reduce those response times. Bryan didn't say it, but most people, you probably realize your average response time factors into your home insurance rates. Lower the response time, the lower the insurance cost. We're going to add transit priority to keep buses on schedule. And then at this point, the idea is to provide the information to the road user, and that means a lot of people, via a mobile device or an in-vehicle platform. So keeping it very open at this point as we work towards our starting the project. So again, the goals: improve safety for all road users, enhance the flow of traffic. It's not quite discongested with signals, but hopefully that's what people see is a lot of green lights. So our next steps, we're reviewing similar projects, things like the Travel Safely app in Renew Atlanta, GDOT SPAT Challenge response, and others around the country. We're also working on a grant for a connected vehicle master plan. We put in that proposal on the 1st. Then, regardless, we'll develop project requirements and specifications. We intend to do this as a design build project, so we will select a team for that in the first part of next year, and then we plan to start construction in the summer of 2019. In fact, this project was mentioned in the Chairman's State of the County address, so it's very sought after and very high profile for us. With that, I'd like to thank ARC first for the opportunity to present today, and also the support they've given us with allocations over the years, the Board of Commissioners who've supported us in our efforts in ITS, and GDOT as well for their expertise and their guidance over the years, our managers and staff. And then lastly, the voters who have supported the SPLOST program, because all that infrastructure I showed earlier would not be in the ground without that support. So with that, I'm done. Did you need to come back up, or do we just want to go with questions for now?
I've got a little bit of a follow-on. But how are we doing for time, Leslie?
We're good for time. How about, why don't we pause here before we go back to you, and any questions you guys might have while Tom is in the hot seat.
All right.
And ask them now. If not, we can switch back if there are any questions.
There's one. Yes, ma'am.
So with the school signal detail, clearly this is also relevant to the Save Lives objective. What do you intend, or do you intend to look back at safety outcomes with your better communication with the signal detail?
Mainly we've been focused more on the reduction in calls, which means they're more reliable. But it's a good question. I'd have to think on that one as far as how we could analyze it.
I have a quick question on piggybacking on that. How quickly can you change, say, there's a snow day all of a sudden, how quickly do you change the signal beacon communications?
You can select them all, say snow day, and you want them, they're going to dismiss everything in an hour. You can set them, it's got the ability to turn them all on and say, hey, schools are letting out. When Hurricane Irma came through, schools closed, and we had broadcast to turn them all off, so they never came on. And so it is very flexible in that respect.
If I could comment that it would be measured in seconds versus minutes.
Yeah.
Is that accurate enough? Versus driving around measured in weeks.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You mentioned you're going to do a connected vehicle technology master plan for the county. What's your time frame on that?
The grant proposal we submitted, the response is due supposedly around to the end of this month. So once that comes out, and we have a year to complete it, but we will be pretty aggressive because of our intended construction schedule. Yes?
Piggyback on that. Are there any freight considerations in that scope of work?
That will be part of the master planning, and out of that we will probably determine the exact scope of RFP for the smart corridor. That is certainly something we consider. The south end in particular, there's a good bit of industrial on and off the corridor, so certainly freight. And if not, as part of this project, it certainly will be an expansion in the near future.
Kind of along those lines, because we're about to kick off or soon we'll start our ITS plan update for the region.
Right.
So certainly want to coordinate on that. And then in terms of the south end of the county, obviously Gwinnett Village or Gateway 85 CID now, they're about to start their freight collection plan as well. We'll probably release their RFP fairly soon. So certainly, what you're doing with that ties in with each of those. roughly the same time period.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me, one thing I didn't mention is some of y'all probably heard Peachtree Corners. The city of Peachtree Corners is working on an automated shuttle bus on Technology Parkway. So I'm sure we'll have conversations with them to make sure that their technology and our technology will work together.
Okay, any other?
Well, on the emergency vehicle side, can you talk a little bit about that?
The vision at this point is an in-vehicle device. It's where the emergency vehicle broadcasts. Will that be a device to broadcast to the cloud or to the signal? Those details will be worked out.
Yeah, and is it at the vehicle can create the preemption, or they have to request it, or how does that? I don't know much about
So
that.
when the lights are on, or?
It'll
Yeah.
probably be we anticipate that being an automatic response. As the vehicle approaches, it gets a green. Now, obviously, the signal will go through its normal safety cycles of yellow and red, but yeah, it would give them a green in response to their presence, not the green's coming up in 10 seconds. It would be more.
I've got a little bit of a video that I'll show you at the end of actually how that works in practice and,
Okay.
and just what it looks like if you're inside the truck.
Yeah, because one of the things in my mind, we show these pictures of these intersections, and there's not many vehicles in them. My experience, driving around Atlanta like the rest of you is the emergency vehicle goes into the opposing traffic lane, goes through the intersection. It moves pretty quickly because there's all these other vehicles in the space that wants to go through even a green signal during the peak period.
And the detail of why that's becoming more and more of a problem is because of the barriers that we're building in the roads because of complete streets, that the flexibility for the fire truck to go down the suicide lane or the shared space and things like that has been eliminated in more and more corridors because of the way we're building roads. And so, I mean, there's a whole technical explanation about how it works, but what you do is because everything's connected to everything, so the fire truck is connected to the intersection, updating its position and its approach speed once a second. And so that the rules are that you decide how you want the signal to behave, because you can initiate its cycle, let's say, with a 30-second ETA to clear the pedestrians, to clear the safety cycles, and to get a just-in-time green. Renew Atlanta, because of the peds are so long, it's 50 seconds. And then the other thing that you can do is detect whether the fire truck is stuck in congestion, and then you pull the greens earlier up the corridor to actually flush out all the traffic, bring everybody else safely to a halt. So actually the algorithms are quite sophisticated, and you can actually give the trucks green lights in very heavy traffic by flushing out the vehicles in front of them. I'll show you a bit of a video on how that works.
You have to get into a fire truck to believe it,
I've got a video from the inside of a fire truck. I don't know whether that counts. I suppose we could do anything.
All right, any last questions? I mean, we'll still have
Yeah,
Tom here.
I'll be here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, but what for those of you who looked at this, Internet of Things as some vague time in the future, no, it's all right now. And so, what are the trends? And at Bryan, I'm not selling ourselves, but we're in over 250 cities right now. So there's trends emerging about how people are dealing with this. And let's just how many? What's
40 minutes.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to speak for about another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll have lots of time for questions, if that's right. Does that sort of timing work? There's definitely a move towards the cities and counties taking the lead, and the state and the federal DOT being left behind. There's a number of reasons for that. Sorry?
No, we're joking. Like, there's a lot of state DOT people and regional people in the room.
Sure. And so, I mean, one of the things that you get from me is I just spit out like I see it. It's sort of to hell with the consequences, as it were. In fact, one of the things, I was in Washington this week, and we, on the commercial side, have a trade association, and I did this visit to Capitol Hill twice a year to go and beg for money or what should be in their legislation or whatever the case may be. And it absolutely struck me on Wednesday just how hard it is to get stuff through Washington. I was in two congressmen's offices. One was Mike Meadows, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus from North Carolina, and his staff wouldn't concede that government regulation contributed to safety. What? Wouldn't concede that the FAA made flying safer. What? Anyway, we had a little chat, so we're going to contribute to your legislation, blah, 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 and had a bit of a duking out session. Then we moved down to the opposite side of the aisle, and de Blasio's staff wouldn't concede that the private sector had a role in delivering innovation. For his world, that was a government role. Okay, what? No wonder you guys can't get along. I mean, I'm in the middle of this whole thing, and they're on this side and this side. The point of the story is that yes, the federal government can let money, but the innovation and the Peachtree Industrial and the Gwinnett counties and the Mariettas and Renewed Atlantis of this world is all being handled at a county and city level. I'm going to touch on the issue of systems engineering. Everybody believes in systems engineering. That's a wide thing, but often folks who implement it miss the user needs. And the key user needs of being able to deliver systems with flexibility to accommodate requirements that haven't been thought of yet. The days of delivering a system with user needs that stay fixed for 10 or 15 or 20 years, those days are done. The fact that Uber and Lyft came about and have appeared and peaked in 5 years means that the old approaches don't work. An interesting thing of that the cities and the counties are moving towards outcomes-based contracting. And so, for example, Gwinnett County, with their business of wanting to buy a school beacon system where they didn't own the servers, is an example of where they were able to come out to bid for an outcome without having to buy all the assets that were involved in that system. And so as you guys come and develop specifications, develop requirement, I just encourage in this new world to focus on the outcomes you desire and less on how you're going to achieve those outcomes. And you put it out there that you require an outcome for X period. There's a great example actually taking place right now called the FirstNet response or technology. And this is a 25-year contract that AT&T have won, like them or not, doesn't matter, to provide first responder communication over the cell phone network, where there are performance requirements and an outcome desired by the federal government. And they're buying this contract, but they're not owning the cell towers. They're not owning the radios. And so this is taking root slowly at the federal level and at the state level. But I was chatting to one of the GDOT consultants, and I said, well, actually at the beginning of this year, we just actually added 8 times the server capacity to our server farms, and it took about 30 seconds. And they just held their hand and said, well, imagine with us, we've got server rooms, we've got to buy our own servers. Imagine how long it would take us to get 8 times the computing capacity. So that's focusing, outcomes based contracting, the shared wireless infrastructure, the fact that the enemy of success is complexity. We've turned all our traffic maintenance technicians, we've tried to turn them into network engineers. I mean, so for example, I'm sure everybody in the room owns one of these. How many of you know what your IP address is? Well, that's interesting. That's the first time somebody's actually put his hand up, because the rest, all that complexity is hidden behind the scenes. And that's an example, whereas county and city-owned networks where everybody's managing IP addresses and so forth, is just complexity which the next generation of systems are avoiding. there's a key issue of over-the-air software updates. Any systems that you buy, just insist on that, no matter who you buy it from. When you're buying field devices that can't do over-the-air software updates, you're buying something that is going to stay fixed for the life of the device unless you physically go and visit it. As you know, that when we moved over to driving Teslas and with autopilot and so forth, and there was a problem about 18 months ago where the person died in Florida where the Tesla hit a car and went underneath a truck. Well, about 4 weeks after that event, Tesla downloaded new software automatically into my car so that the car wouldn't have that problem again. It was a software failure, and they fixed it. The point being is that the idea that your car is going to drive the same as when you drive it out of the showroom for the next 10 years or however long you keep the car, that's like an antiquated concept. And the same with all the devices that you buy. They all work like your phone. That's all part of the Internet of Things. Bundle the hardware, software, maintenance, warranty, and telematics into an outcome. This is a... I trust myself to... a fire truck in Marietta here, but it gives you an example. This is of how the Internet of Things and connected vehicle actually make a difference. So you can see that it automatically requests green lights. When the lights are silent on, the guy behind the wheel doesn't have to do anything. If he's responding to a call, it requests lights and sirens. You'll see the behavior of the traffic ahead changing. And I'm actually just going to stop it there. And so what you see is that the fire truck's given a green light and a green left turn. So we're not pre-planning his route. He's a fire response guy who knows where he's going. We're just doing two things, giving him the choice of green lights no matter where he wants to go, and you can see we're bringing everybody else safely to a halt. So no longer have you got the fire truck fighting with the traffic and the accidents and deaths that are involved with that. So this is both the saving lives by getting the paramedic more quickly to citizens in need, as well as saving the lives of the other road users who don't have a speeding fire truck coming through.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so there's a couple of...
about the ride in the fire truck now.
Well, there we go. So you can see that this next light ahead here, again, everybody else brought safely to a halt. Green light for the fire truck. Now, there's an interesting thing happening here, that there's a light around the corner. And the fire truck driver doesn't know what the situation is around the corner. Except that when he gets around the corner, he sees that the lights are green and everybody else is brought safely to a halt. So it's just a fundamentally safer way of responding to an emergency than before. And so these are immediate results of connected vehicles and so forth. We'll touch on another thing here. This is the Travel Safely app. So in your car it says emergency vehicle. You know that business when you're standing at the light and it goes, whoa, 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 and you go, oh, where's the fire truck coming from? Well, now your car says to you, emergency vehicle approaching from behind, from the right, from the left, and so forth. So I think that's... this is me trying to drive a Mac is probably a... How do I get back to my presentation? We've got lots of examples of connected things. And I think that I'll hold off the live demo in the interest of questions. And Tom, you can come up as well, and let's see if we can handle whatever questions come up. I'll do the easy one. Yeah.
Bryan, is the Marietta deployment complete, or is it still under expansion?
It's complete.
Okay.
There are 250 devices, little grains of sand still being rung out like the railroad preemption. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's an interesting. They've got a railroad there. What are we going to do about that? And they've got an interesting thing where they've got one controller running 2 intersections. So there's little grains of sand. But for the rest, you can drive through there and see it all working.
Are
250
you talking
devices.
to Cobb County and Smyrna about expanding that
Yes.
within their jurisdictions as well?
And so, again, everybody's very siloed, but what is going to drive that is transit.
Mm-hmm.
Because the transit vehicles need to go across jurisdictions, and that hopefully will be a result of the legislation that was just signed, putting all the transit together, that they're not all these silos of everybody arguing with each other. And so that's Winter's. For those who don't, Winter Horville is from Temple, is our channel partner in this whole endeavor. So what we do is we're the technology guys. We go to market through Temple, who've got access to market in all these cities and so forth. So Winter's spearheading those other surrounding jurisdictions.
So this is a challenge that I've been hearing. How are you trying to anticipate the ever-changing technology? Like, you make a pretty substantial investment into one technology, and then in a couple years, it's outdated. Just like we all upgrade our smartphones
Right.
every couple years.
Define the outcome you desire. So how we as a commercial company is we enter into a 10-year contract with some customers, 5 years in other customers, where we will warrant connectivity and support. And so, for example, when 2G went away and 3G came about, Marietta didn't even know, because their contract was, you guys worry about all of that. So transfer the responsibility for technology upgrade to your vendor. Likewise, the change from 3G to 4G and 4G to 5G. Don't worry about it. Require that your vendor takes care of that, because that's the outcome you desire.
Is it anticipated that there would be some additional cost?
Nope. We contract because we are confident in our ability to manage those risks. So it's all factored into the capital cost of the equipment that's purchased, because it comes with a connectivity support and warranty of 5 or 10 years. And that's it's what we call low friction delivery. Let's try and get this out there in such a way that's easiest for our customers to manage it. We're the technical guys. And what we as a and I'm guilty of this. I've been in this business for 20 years. And it's like the Land Rover commercial, which says turning owners into mechanics for 25 years. There's a little shot at Land Rover. But nonetheless, we turned our customers into systems integrators. We continually sell them bits and pieces and say, hey, Tom, over to you, man. You guys manage all of this and install it out. And there's a smarter way of doing it, led by these guys.
And can I add to
Yes.
that, Bryan? So I represent a lot of other manufacturers, and this is definitely our technology-based manufacturer. The rest of them are traffic signal items that we all have dealt with, signals and stuff. So they're not necessarily smart. And so what we've seen in the past is us selling a piece of hardware to the maintaining agencies and them maintaining that. So, and then we've watched these manufacturers having to come into a technology world with having, bringing the things online and things, and they're traffic people. It's traffic people trying to do this, whereas Bryan is more on the technology side of it, and he's working with the traffic products that are out there. And so with this, what he just said, that kind of contract-based and it being part of the price is new. I mean, even for me, my house, Bryan has spoiled me with this because we had our security people come out with the whole 2G change and everything. Oh, you need a new, and I had to pay for it. And I'm like, whoa. I pay you monthly to guarantee me that my house is safe and you guys are watching it. Why am I having to pay to change this out? So that's what Bryan is providing, and that's what I see as the future, providing that you are being watched, your stuff is being watched, that it is going to work. And so with that contract, that's warranty. And a lot of people put a lot of things on warranty, like if it's lightning or whatever. That's not Bryan. Bryan said he needs this. We need the products to work. You guys need the products to work. We need the products to work because we sold them to you. So it's actually, that's been the best thing, probably one of the best things that I've noticed in the past over 4 years of working with Bryan.
Yes, we just get to, you mentioned the desired outcome. So for the Marietta expansion or the smart vehicles, do you guys do kind of performance monitoring, like before and after, showing like what's the differences, what's the benefits, and then that can set up to the stage for even, the next generation of technology, and then what kind of outcome, the agency can actually establish.
Yeah, great point. And I think that I'm going to answer it like this. We're a technology company. The measurement of the outcome is done by the consulting community.
Okay.
And so there are various degrees of sophistication in different cities. But our experience has been, and performance measures is to do with the whole business of performance measures. I'd love to tell you it was different. But in the more than 250 cities that we're in, the bulk of the problem is keeping the lights on. So the business of them knowing when they're getting power failures and which areas they've got unreliable power, and then being able to respond quickly and effectively to power outages, that is proved through measuring everything to be the low-hanging fruit of making everything much more reliable. Keeping solar-powered systems working and so forth. So yes, there are a number of measurements that we do right now, but the reality is that they're all quite basic, very sophisticated measurements. I mean, we do measurements of what your average response time and what your trips are for the fire trucks, because we know all of that information. But don't forget, we always provide more information that overwhelms our local authorities' ability to process it and take action on it. I mean, Gwinnett County, for example, all of our local authorities, and I'm not going to call them maintaining agencies, by the way. That used to be the expression.
That's true.
They're all dealing with skills reduction, people retiring, struggle to hire new people. And so the business of Tom's got a great metric of measuring the effectiveness of the school beacon by how many customer complaints he gets from the citizens. Well, we also respond to that because that's the outcome that Tom desires. The business of doing, let's say, a crash analysis, which I know, that's a very sophisticated analytic process, considering that a fatal crash occurs every 88 million miles of driving. It's a very infrequent event, statistically very hard to deal with. And the reality, the Gwinnett County, I've got many problems to deal with, but tackling that kind of analysis would be very difficult. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
So, I know, sort of.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, we are all, a lot of us are in the transportation field. I know performance-based planning is always the key, and you mentioned the 4, key goals of saving lives, improve congestions. So I'm just saying that, kind of link back to the goals you have talked about at the beginning, can we actually, and I know there are lots of different performance measures, and then, but maybe just the, kind of pick couple of the key ones and then tell the story.
I do understand. Interestingly enough, our customers don't buy on that basis. The consulting community potentially would or could or might, but our customers, Chief Gibbs, 40-year veteran of the Marietta fire, he knows that system backwards. He knows exactly where every congestion point is, and he buys the technology and deploys it. He says it works great. I don't need none of your fancy numbers, because I know the city like the back of my hand. And he doesn't need third-party validation. He's a 60-year-old fire chief. He's got it. And so this is the reality of the world that we live in. And so there are environments where analytics, but the low-hanging fruit of making the 270 school beacons, getting them to come on the right time, and dealing with snow days and the couple of things that we're dealing with, and dealing with the fact that we get it wrong 100 times in the past, and Tom's got down to getting it 4 or 5 things. That's probably as sophisticated an analysis as you need at this time. Because our customers can't absorb anything that's really more sophisticated. Because otherwise you're trying to, I'd love to collaborate. We've got all this data to do deep mining and deep analytics. I'd love to have a partner who thought that was a good idea and can take it. We're sending it all to Georgia Tech, for example. Every person driving up and down North Avenue and every change of phase of every light. Georgia Tech. All right, guys, knock yourselves out. Let's see what you can come up with. That's where we're at.
I'll follow up on that just slightly. As part of our master planning, we'll probably identify some performance metrics that we want to be able to track when the project's deployed. So, I got some almost 60-year-old people, but I'm not going to just let them tell me it's better. We'll have to show some documentation, and part of this to show the public and the decision makers in a nice way that this is the effectiveness of the system.
Any more?
You referenced your app, Travel Safely, or
Yeah.
something like that. So do you publish an API for that drives that, so other people or different customers, counties and cities could plug into that and drive the presentation of that system?
Yes, indeed. At this stage, again, we don't have the pickup from other counties who say, wow, what we want is our own version of that. Everybody's still getting, wow, we didn't realize it could do that. So that's the point that we're at. And we've got open APIs and open data feeds because we come at it from the point of view that the data is owned by the local authority. So we're not trying to snaffle the data. We're just trying to make these systems work. And that's why those 4 objectives that I established were what our things. So if Tom says, oh, well, this university wants access to this data, we'll say, well, give us an IP address, and off they go. There's no question of who owns the data. It's just the commercial reality is that the cities, counties, and states are not ready to handle that level of sophistication.
I would add a comment of the level of complexity that's coming to the planning community and opportunity and all these connected smart technology solutions that provide a lot of data sources, that fire hose of data. The complexity is in what do we want to measure? What are the performance measures? There's more growing opportunities for capturing data that we did not have access to before. At the last quarterly meeting, we had Mobileye here who presented on their product. They're working with, I always get it wrong, but let's say Berlin. It's a big city in Germany, and I always get it wrong. Working with the government there so that all their cameras that they have deployed on fleets that are making their rounds, delivering mail or delivering whatever, they're measuring already how many pedestrians are they passing, what's the speed limit sign here, and capturing it for their system, but they're not sharing it with the governments who need it for the performance measures. So they're working in Germany to figure out, okay, what from our massive data sets would be beneficial to you. So that's something exciting. It's something that we'll have to think through of how to
And again, just to echo that back to you, Leslie, if I may, the challenge is not our ability to provide you with data, but is for you guys to decide what outcomes you want to achieve. That's where the hard part is right now. Everybody says, well, send me all the data. I mean, we had this in various places. Send me all the data. We'll figure out how we're going to use it later. All right. We're going to send you a lot of data. I mean, every signal changes state every couple of seconds. We're going to send you all that data of every vehicle approaching and so forth. It just becomes focus on what outcome you want to see, and then we can figure out which data we can support that outcome.
With the recently signed Georgia bill with the distracted driving, did that impact the app at all?
No, and the reason being is the app is primarily an audible app. And so what it does is it speaks to you over your car speaker. It doesn't require any input. If you choose to have it as part of your dash display, you can do that. But no, there's nothing to press. There's nothing to do. There's no distraction. It is going to distract you if you're about to run a red light. It's going to tell you you're going to do that. And so, but we think that that's the kind of distraction that people would like. But it's all done audibly.
Okay.
Through voice command, voice interaction.
So I know we've talked a little bit about this, so I'm going to cop to my ignorance. Is Glance as whatever hardware is actually in the cabinet? I know y'all gotten pretty agnostic about any of the other, information collecting hardware that's baked into that intersection. Are you guys basically trying to pull it all?
Correct.
So camera technology, vehicle counts, vehicle movements, the whole thing.
Yeah, the low-hanging fruit.
If you're thinking about performance metrics, you really do have to kind of understand the universe of information that we're collecting now.
Yeah, but there's an interesting concept, which is this is a longer topic, but it's the concept of abstraction. Abstraction is what made technology simple to deploy. And what means is that everybody does one thing, and somebody else does a layer on top of that, and a layer on top of it, and a layer on top of it. And so that we play in that role. So we deal with all the traffic controller manufacturers, but all the traffic controller manufacturers all capture performance measures out of the traffic controller. Their problem is they can't get it out to the cloud and display it in a dashboard. So that's what we're doing, is doing that part of it, to make it easy to deliver performance measures. And high-speed wireless communications, what we're calling wireless fiber, as we move away from fiber, especially government-owned fiber, to shared wireless infrastructures. You can deliver video and so forth like that wirelessly, and that's where all the movement is towards. Let's finally wore everybody down with the...
I pulled up the list. Thank you guys for folks who provided questions through the registration process. And one that comes to mind for me and that we've talked to it privately about, but maybe you can highlight is the concept of security in this connected world. Where is everyone on planning for safe environments as our vehicles become more connected?
Right. How long have you got? No. It's a topic by itself, but I'm going to touch on it in this way. Is that I come from the environment where at the start of this process I said one thing I will never do is I will never do banking over the internet. That's clearly a stupid thing to do, that nobody would ever possibly do that. Well, it just shows how little I know, because I'm clearly wrong. And we all do banking over the internet. And the reason being is a bunch of very smart guys figure out how to do security. And the approach is security in layers. And the same applies to our world. So, for example, Tom's school beacons have the same level of security as you do when you're conducting banking transactions. Now you might say, well, that's a bit excessive for a couple of school beacons, but the reality is, because it's abstracted, there's some people who do that as a speciality, and they've proven it all out in the banking environment, so we may as well use it for Tom's school beacons. We didn't invent it, we just use it. And that's the secret that everybody's doing, is applying security in layers. And so that's the defense. And if you move to cloud computing, if you're running your own servers, and you move to cloud computing for no other reason than security, that would be a great idea. And the reason being, it's much better to have Amazon and Google's and the other speciality guys who focus on security with hundreds of people responding to threats than trying to manage that yourself. Did that touch on your...
Yeah, did that spark any other...
I can tell the other story, it'd scare everybody to death by talking about what could go wrong. Could go wrong. The other key thing, and again it's in the abstraction, traffic cabinet, everybody's worried about traffic cabinets and cars. I'm obviously a lot more familiar with traffic cabinets. The reality is they're devices like ours in traffic cabinets that deal with the interface and the communications. There's the traffic controller, that's physically a separate hardware, and we have security between us that we can't tell the traffic controller to do something stupid. Then, besides the traffic controller, there's the conflict monitor, the malfunction management unit, and that's a whole separate thing which makes sure that the traffic controller behaves. So I'd ask each one of you who worried about security, when you were driving through the traffic lights in the last couple of years, how many times have you worried about or have seen 2 green lights and being hit by a car on an opposing phase? And the answer is you never have. You never worry about it. And the reason being is because the security that's built into the traffic cabinets actually works and works very reliably.
Great. Any other questions? If not, we'll probably wrap up a little bit early and get back into the sunshine or in front of our computer screens.
As the case. Well, I'd just like to thank everybody really for listening, and I hope hopefully you guys enjoyed it and were a little bit challenged and realized that the future is right here in front of us.